What are your thoughts about the news? Cam Newton will be joining. Yeah, that's right, folks. Cam Newton, former NFL MVP, he will be joining ESPN. Signed a deal with ESPN to join First Take as a regular. This is huge because Cam Newton, I knew that he has TV. I knew he was made for TV. Personality, charisma. Um, and it's also interesting with ESPN because remember, guys, Kimberly Martin. Remember ESPN Get Up? Remember the criticism she gave Cam Newton when Cam Newton was on his podcast and he said Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, Brock Purdy game managers. He's working in the same network with Kimberly Martin. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's going to work with his now current colleagues there. But I think this is huge for First Take, a big win for Stephen A. Smith, to add another personality like Cam. I mean, you talk about personalities. You got Stephen A. Smith, you got Shannon Sharp, and now you have Cam Newton. My God. And especially for football, I think this was big. I'm not surprised with it at all. I'm happy for Cam. He's having success, life after football. I think Cam was made for podcasting, sports media because of not only his accomplishments, but his personality, his insight. It shows you that he can succeed with life after football, and I'm happy for him. So, Champ, what are your thoughts?
I love it, man. I wish I could ask Cam Newton who his stylist was, man, because that stuff that he be having on be fresh, man. People might not think it's fresh to them, man, but to me, them hats and all that stuff be fresh, man. I like it, man. You know, I mean, he into fashion. Like I said, man, I think the best interview that he did was last year when he interviewed Matt Ryan during the Super Bowl. And that was one of his best interviews. Not to mention, man, he wasn't afraid to have the hard conversations with a guy with a major personality like Warren Sapp.
Mm-hmm.
When he had a hard conversation about Warren Sapp. You have to be willing to have the hard conversation. But and if there anyone any more qualified than Cam Newton in order to talk about football, I want to see him. Because when you really think about Dan Orlowski, he's qualified, but not Cam Newton qualified. I'm happy to see that, man. Shannon Sharp. I mean, hey, not to mention, man, another big hire that they had, this past week, Shams is on ESPN, man.
Shams
So
Charania, yeah.
yeah, Shams is on ESPN. So ESPN, man, they're definitely trying to bring the viewership back to that news station, man. Big ups to them, man. They have definitely it's a beautiful thing to see Cam Newton. I mean, like I said, because they came looking for you. Like I think I said this on TikTok. I said the great words T.I. I said I was king and the lane start laughing. The same cats now want the king on the track with him. And that's exactly what happened with Cam Newton, man. He was laughing at him last year. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. And lo and behold, he was right. My thing is, it's not hard for me to work in the same building with somebody if I'm right. Everything that I said proved to be well-founded. And now even y'all have to admit that I was right. Because apparently you hired me. So, apparently I was right about a couple of things. So I'm elated, man. Plus, Cam, man. Cam.
And he a Georgia boy.
Yeah, like I said, yeah, he from Atlanta. And so, Joy watching Cam in college. Joy watching Cam, although he was my division rival in the pro. I enjoy his podcast, man. And for a lot of these independent guys to be getting these major jobs, that is an indictment on how good you really are. And ESPN, if you're watching, if you can slip my boy PSP up in there, that'll be helpful. If you can slip that in right before I graduate, that'll be real good, man. Slip PSP up in there, man, on First Take. That'll be a episode to see.
That'd be great too. Same thing with you, champion. I mean, you made for ESPN as well as BRF as well. Can you imagine y'all going back and forth against Stephen A. Smith?
Yeah, that would be fun, man. I would
That'd be a
actually
moment I live for. That's a moment I live for, bro. Straight up.
I don't necessarily have to win that debate. Just to say I did it was is a beautiful thing.
It's an honor and a privilege.
Honor, man. You know, especially with a lot of the journalists that we're seeing, man. I mean, it's beautiful, especially when you see football, man. I'm glad that the football players are starting to overtake journalism outside of those writers, because now the football players who played are the media members. They are the writers at this point. And so you don't have to listen to a lot of media bias when it comes to certain quarterbacks just because, or certain players just because they aren't media friendly. These are players and they have no bias. They are players. So it's good to see athletes taking over the media rather than those writers. Because as you see in baseball, a lot of times what happens is a lot of these writers have agendas when it comes to certain players or for certain players. And because of that, a lot of wrong things gets written. So I'm glad to see that the NFL players are becoming the media. They are the media. When you think about Shannon Sharp, when you think about Swagoo, when you think about Damian Woody, when you think about Dan Orlowski, all of those guys,
Ryan Clark.
Keyshawn Johnson, even on the FS1, all of these guys are former players.
Ryan Clark.
Yes, right, especially Ryan Clark, man. Them suits is something else to behold. You talk about fashion; those suits are amazing.
Libra brother too.
Huh?
He's a Libra too.
Oh, for real? I did not
Yeah.
know that.
He and Stephen A. Smith are Libras too.
No wonder. No wonder.
Ironically, Jerry Jones is a Libra too.
Well, damn. Well, damn. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. A lot of shit, a lot of famous folks with October kids. That's crazy. Wow. Oh, that's amazing. I'm speechless right about now, man. Go ahead, PR. I'm speechless.
Hey, man. Hey. That's what it's about at the end of the day, man. You get the good facts coming out of nowhere, man. Hey, that's why you love to see it. But
Yeah.
first off, shout out to Champ for the T.I. line. And if y'all don't know that song, he got that line from Big Things Poppin', Things Stoppin'. It's one of my favorite T.I. songs. So we getting that reference out the way. But it was I'm happy for Cam Newton. I'm really happy for Cam Newton. Because yeah, he got a lot of flack for that game manager comment. And he was proven pretty right with that comment. But I'm happy for Cam because Cam isn't one of those like with hot takes or like just speaks for clicks and views and all that stuff. As a former number one overall draft pick, as a former league MVP and Super Bowl participant, and arguably one of the best players of the 2010s. It's not like homeboy don't know what he talking about. He knows what he's talking about. He knows the game of football. He has a high IQ, and he's still a young guy. So it just brings a new dynamic. He's definitely. I mean, he's younger than me. So I mean, he brings something new to the table going to ESPN, and honestly you love to see it because he's this new generation of podcasters who coming in, starting their own podcast, building the following, cultivating something that we can enjoy, that we can relate to. So honestly, I'm ready. I'm ready to see him go up against Stephen A. I'm ready to see him go up against Shannon. I'm ready for it. I am ready for this new dynamic of Cam Newton because he's going to bring something to the table at ESPN that they ain't necessarily seen his level of it and his style of it yet. So I'm ready for it. I'm personally am here for it. I'm also a fan of his podcast too. Fourth and One. I like his podcast too. It's a banger. So I definitely am ready for the dynamic he's about to bring to ESPN, and I gotta I got if I'll say this though, I know Stephen A got a lot of pull as far as first taking all that stuff. If Stephen A had anything to do with Cam, and I'm sure he did, shout out to Stephen A. Smith because him being an older guy, but still kind of hip enough to kind of get in with like the crowds of the day, the people of the day, with what we follow and what we listen to and all that. Kudos, kudos. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to see where Cam can take this and what kind of dynamic he's gonna bring. So I'm happy for Cam, and like I said, he's not one of these football players that just gonna come in and just kind of say stuff off the top of the dome just to say it. He was in the trenches. He understands concepts. He understands schemes. He understands coaching as far as like their styles, their demeanors, and all. He understands football. So I'm happy. I'm happy to see it because he's coming in from a perspective of just playing a couple years ago. So like just being in the league. So I'm happy for him, and I'm excited to see what he does.
Yes, and I also think Shannon Sharp definitely played a role too for Cam Newton going to
Mm,
ESPN because he's from Georgia as well as Cam, and Shannon Sharp was in ESPN also because of Stephen A. Smith. So maybe Shannon Sharp behind closed doors had something to do with it. And I think with ESPN, man, that's just the thing they are. I mean, look, to Champ's point, he mentioned Sham Charania. You got him now. You have Pat McAfee. You have Stephen A. Smith. You have now Shannon Sharp and Cam Newton. And plus, they may, who knows? Are they gonna keep Stephen A. Smith? They better if they want to still keep competing and still stay number one. So ESPN, they've gotten their act together, and you're seeing like with ESPN, Cam with his podcast, Ryan Clark does a good job, but he's got the Pivot podcast. So hey, ESPN is doing their thing, and I'm really happy for Cam and etc.